Hey everybody, so I thought it would be really fun to take all of you along on a foraging adventure to find some free craft supplies. Let's go!
Yeah, this is good.
Okay, so this next clip is of my daughter and I. We went out for a walk on some trails that are really close to our home, and I like to go foraging there for pine cones and some branches. There's one particular branch that I love to go and collect over there, so I thought it would be fun to take you along over there as well. Okay, we are back home, and now I am going to show all of you what I do with all of those amazing finds that we collected out in the forest. So let's get into that. Okay, so I happen to have 3 cardboard trays. I had picked these up at my local garden center. I had bought my plants, and I'm like, I'm going to keep these because I like to put my pine cones and my moss and smaller pieces that I find out in the forest, and I like to put those things in these boxes and allow them to dry. So here are the pine cones that I had collected on the trail close here to my neighborhood. So all you have to do is just leave these set in the box and allow them to dry if they are wet. Now I will typically put these outside in the sun, but if you are not sure, you can definitely put these on a cookie sheet. I would line it with some parchment paper or some foil, and you can put these in the oven, especially if they are closed tight. You can put them in the oven, then that will help them to open up. I would not go any higher than 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's typically what I would do. And then you'll want to keep a close eye on things. You don't want these to burn, so that wouldn't be good. Usually I like to just lay these out in the sun. We get really good sunshine that shines down into our sun deck area, so it works well for me. So just have to think about what you have that would work for you for wherever you live. So here are the larger pine cones that I had found on my walk in the forest. So these can close up tight as well, and same thing, you can just put them in the sunshine or the oven. So there are other varieties of pine cones that I will collect, but these are the ones that are most readily available to me. I will show you the ones that are on the hemlock branches as well. So you can see how on the hemlock branch, the pine cones are staying on this particular branch, and I love that. I will use these a lot at Christmas time. I think they look so neat. And like I said though, when I showed you the twig pile, they are delicate, so I don't typically use too many of these, but they're still really fun to have in your collection of foraged finds. So these are the branches that I had foraged out in the forest on my walk with my husband. And what I typically like to do is actually leave them outside for a while, allow them to dry really well and kind of cure, and then I bring them in as needed. I keep them kind of outside under our sun deck. It's out of the elements so they don't get wet again, and it works well for me. So if you have a space outside that you can tuck these away just to allow them to dry, then I highly suggest doing that. Okay, so I keep all of my branches in this basket. This is in my extra storage area down in the basement, but I put them in here once everything is dry. You can see I even have like pieces of driftwood that I had collected from the beach a while back, and yeah, this is just where I keep it all, and it works really well. It's out of the way. I actually need to go through this and get rid of some of it, but I've got like a little container there with some smaller pieces of driftwood. But yeah, so I even use my branches over and over and over again. If you've got some really nice sturdy ones, then this works really well. Okay, so we've got our birch bark. Now this is the one thing I use a lot. If you all have been following me for a while, you'll see that I use it a lot in my projects. I've got several videos. I will have a playlist for all of you, so you can check all of those out if you are interested in seeing all those creations that I make with birch bark. But what I usually do is, first of all, you saw that when I was out in the forest, I cleaned them out as best as I could while I was out there, but these were damp, so not all the debris had fallen out. It's been raining a lot here where I live. I just cleaned it out best I can. So once I get it home, again, I will leave these out under my sun deck where it's nice and dry. And then when I go to use them, I scrape the debris off. Like there's some inner layer bark right here still. Yeah, I'll just remove that. And I know a lot of people have asked me if I'm at all concerned about bugs. I have had 2 incidents, and I have been doing this for 25 plus years. I've only had 2 incidents where one was actually some fungi spores. And then another one was because of a bug. So the fungi spores, I had made something for my parents. They had it up on their wall, and they had it actually it was above their fireplace. That's right. They had it for several years already. And then one day my mom discovered that there was mushrooms growing in her houseplant dirt. So she thought that was weird and it was causing a problem. And then she had noticed, like she does regularly, but that one time she noticed that there was like a yellowy powder on her mantle. So she looked, and it turned out some little mushroom type dried pieces that I had used had actually started to release spores. These mushroom pieces were completely and totally dried when I used them. So I thought they were dead. So I wasn't thinking that that would happen. But whatever the conditions are, they were perfect, and they ended up releasing spores around the house, and then she ended up having mushrooms in her plants. So this is the mushroom that you definitely want to treat. I had some smaller ones like this, and that was what ended up giving off the spores and causing a problem for my mom. So if you do end up collecting something like this, then I would definitely highly suggest putting them in the oven to kill them off completely. Maybe put it in a light solution of some bleach or vinegar. But yeah, I mean, they're very cool. I had foraged this one quite a while ago, and I did put this in the oven, and I have not had any problems with it since. And then the bug, I had made a wall hanging using assorted yarns, and they were both a mix of synthetic and natural fibers. Well, one day I looked at that wall hanging and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Some of the strings are coming loose. So I had a closer look and I noticed they were broken apart. I'm like, oh. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, that's so strange. So I took it down and I had a closer look at the branch, and I had seen a hole in the branch. So there was a larva that happened to be in that particular branch. It was super, super tiny. and it chewed through all the natural strings. Like I had some wool string on that wall hanging. If you are concerned about bugs, then definitely put things in the oven. But for me personally, those were the only 2 incidents that I have had. Pine cones I use all the time. I find that if you leave things out in the sun, it kills stuff or everything vacates. So branches, like I have not had a problem since that one incident. And the birch bark, as long as I clean it really well, I seem not to have an issue, but I can't promise that you won't. So whatever you are collecting in around your area, then definitely user beware. Just, you know, have a really good look and see how things are, and use your own judgment on how to handle these things. Like I said, I've been doing this for 25 plus years and I've only had 2 incidents. So I thought it was so cool that I managed to find some pieces of birch bark that are whole like this. These are great to use. You can slip jars or vases inside. Yeah, I love being able to have some of these big pieces like this. And I have some smaller ones too. Here's a smaller tube that I have foraged. It's awesome. You can slip battery operated candles in there. Really great find. Okay, so I have some things here that are lichens. So this is, can't remember the name of this one, but it's really fragile and it's kind of neat, but it's strong enough that you can kind of tear it like paper. So again, I just set it in a box and allow it to dry. This was actually already dry when I picked it off of the branch. And then branches like this are always fun too. They've already got all the moss and lichen growing on them. Beautiful in projects. So I got all of those. Okay, and now the moss. So I don't know how many of you know, but I'm a trained florist. I have been out of the industry for several years now, but we used to get moss like this in the flower shops all the time. We had some people that would go and pick it in designated areas where you're allowed to pick the moss on a large amount. So we would get like garbage bags full of moss. And that was what we would use, say, for certain, say, wedding work or funeral work, as well as our planters. We would use this to cover up the pots. We would just get it like this. It was wet. Sometimes we'd find spiders. Sometimes we'd find worms. But that's how we used it. We would just clean it up a bit and you just used it as is. So that's what I typically do again. Now I do lay this in a box and allow it to dry, and I put it outside, but I put this in an area where it's shaded. I don't want the sun getting at this because I don't want the sun to bleach it out. And I just let it dry and everything ends up vacating. Again, if you're concerned, you could put this in the oven, but I would definitely put it in the oven at a low heat because you don't want to wreck your moss. But I, again, have been using moss for years and I have not had any issues with it. I love moss so much, and it's actually kind of fun and satisfying to collect. So yeah, again, I'll just put it in a box, let it sit in the box and dry in the shade, and then I just use it whenever I need it. If you want to rehydrate it, then you could just use a spritzing bottle with water, or you could actually put it in a bucket and soak it. It's kind of like a sponge, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so these are all the things that I typically forage. If you have any questions at all, then feel free to please leave those down in the comments section and I will do my best to answer those for you. So I just want to quickly let you know, I do go foraging different times of the year. I'll go in the spring and again in the fall and even in the winter. The winter time is a great time to go and get all those evergreens that you like to use in all your Christmas arrangements. So I will have a video for that down in the description box below for you to check out.